One of the things that's interesting about this story is, why is it so unknown? Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. A few weeks ago marked the 80th anniversary of the United States involvement in the Battle of the Bulge. That was one of the largest battles that the United States Army has ever found itself in. I think most people are quite familiar with a lot of the main characteristics of the battle. For example, the 101st Airborne being encircled around Bastogne. What I'm about to tell you is no particular insult to those glorious heroes that were at Bastogne, but I kind of stumbled across a story that I found to be completely fascinating because it's largely untold. During that same battle, beginning on December 16th, at a place called Elsenborn Ridge, the United States Army's 2nd and 99th Infantry Division found itself on the extreme northern edge of the Ardennes campaign. The 99th and the 2nd were two infantry divisions filled with reservists from Pennsylvania. They had only gotten to Europe in October of '44 and were placed on the line in November. They had such little experience that everybody referred to them as the battle babies. That's going to be kind of an important thing later on because they were sent to the area they were because there was very little expectation of any sort of fighting to come. However, they were assigned a very long sort of area of operations along the line to the point where there was no reserves. There was no reinforcement in depth. They were simply it. And they were thinned out to the point where every one of their soldiers was basically responsible for around 90 meters of territory. This violated almost every tenet put forth in the U.S. Army's infantry manual, but that's simply how things were. On the 16th of December, of course, the 1st SS Panzer Corps launched its attack. It's very important because they attacked in the north, trying to get a hold of an east-west road that would lead them to Antwerp. Success for the Germans would come down to one basic thing: timetable. How quickly they could secure these roads that would take them to Antwerp, because they only had a very limited amount of fuel and a very limited amount of ammunition. What occurred over the next 10 days was nothing short of amazing. The Germans held a high superiority in tanks and armored vehicles and outnumbered the Americans somewhere around 6-1. There were, however, a couple of things that the Germans didn't count on. First one being American steel, and the second one being American courage. For those of you that are curious, this is a semi-automatic version of the Browning M1919 machine gun. This is made by Matheson Tool, and the rounds that you see here, though period correct, are actually inert. I'm obviously not going to shoot this. It's more of a prop and a cool thing I've been blessed to kind of come across over the years. The 99th Infantry Division would stop the German advance with machine gun and artillery fire almost exclusively. In the lull from them arriving on the line in November until the attack beginning on December 16th, they had fortified their positions and very strategically placed their artillery behind them so they could cover a major German onslaught, even though there wasn't supposed to be one. 99th Infantry was made up of the 394, 395, and 396th Infantry regiments. It would be the only place in the Battle of the Bulge where the Germans failed to advance at all. And that's historically significant because it caused Piper and the leaders of 1st Panzer Corps to go around this position. This contributed to their lack of fuel and would eventually stall their attack some days later. But the next 10 days would be nothing but hell for 99th Infantry Division. One of their NCOs, Sergeant Richard Cowan, on the 17th of December, killed 100+ German soldiers with his heavy machine gun. Unfortunately, He lost his life the next day and would go on to win the Medal of Honor. They also had another Medal of Honor winner from the 99th, PFC Lopez, who also covered his men tree from tree in a heavy machine gun section. Lopez would go on to live a long life, dying well into his 90s. One of the things that's interesting about this story is, why is it so unknown? Well, historians calculate it for one simple reason. Bastogne was actually a rear area for rest and relaxation for war correspondents. There were simply more witnesses there who could get the word out about the sacrifice of the 101st Airborne. Everybody involved in the battle, however, was going through their own private hell. That's just the one we know about. Another reason why Bastogne is more widely known is there's been more movies about it. From the Battle of the Bulge, of course, Robert Shaw played the German general, right down to Tom Hanks's Band of Brothers. It sort of culminates in the Ardennes forest. So it's been more glamorized and it's a more widely told story. But I think the heroic acts committed by reservists from Pennsylvania also deserves some of our time and attention. Believe it or not, Hasso-Manteuffel, a German general, wrote after the war that the Battle of the Bulge was more than fought around Bastogne. In fact, he would actually say that one of the reasons why it failed was because Piper's men ran their heads into a concrete wall much farther north. Bastogne matters because the line was already held a few days before. The 2nd and 99th Infantry Division lost 5,000 men at the Battle of the Bulge and thousands more wounded. German losses are really not known to us. They weren't in the position to keep good records at that point, but they lost so much armor they would never recover. They truly now would be on the defensive as they were perceived to be before the Battle of the Bulge. The wind had been taken out of their sails, and all they could do was fight a rearguard action all the way back to Berlin. I hope you guys have enjoyed this little snippet in history, a little bit of an unknown story by some amazing American heroes and American steel.